Most people think their dog is simply looking for attention. But when a dog leans against you, science suggests something much deeper may be happening. Because this isn't just random affection. It isn't a habit. And it isn't something dogs do with everyone. In fact, the moment your dog quietly presses their body against your leg, they may be revealing how they truly feel about you in a way that doesn't require a single sound. And once you understand what this behavior really means, you'll never see your dog lean against you the same way again. To understand why dogs do this, we first need to go back thousands of years, long before dogs ever became part of our families, where this behavior really comes from. For thousands of years, long before dogs slept on our beds or waited by the front door for us to come home, their ancestors survived by staying close to the members of their pack. In the wild, physical contact wasn't just comforting. It was practical. Sleeping close together helped conserve warmth. Standing shoulder to shoulder created protection. And remaining physically connected helped strengthen the social bonds that kept the entire group alive. Back then, a wolf that trusted the pack stayed close to it. Distance often meant uncertainty. But over thousands of years, something remarkable happened. As wolves slowly evolved into the dogs we know today, that instinct didn't disappear. It changed. Instead of depending on a pack of wolves, dogs began building those same emotional bonds with us. Researchers who study canine behavior believe that modern dogs often treat their closest humans as important social partners, forming attachment bonds that share many characteristics with those seen between young children and their caregivers. That's why physical closeness still matters so much to them. Because to your dog, touch isn't just touch. It's information. It's reassurance. And sometimes, it's the simplest way they know to say, I feel safest when I'm close to you. But here's where it becomes even more interesting. If leaning against you is connected to trust, why do some dogs lean against one person, but not another living in the very same house? The answer has everything to do with how your dog chooses the people they trust most. Why your dog chooses you. If leaning against you is connected to trust, then another question naturally follows. Why do some dogs lean against one person, but barely ever lean against someone else living in the very same house? The answer isn't as simple as who feeds them the most, or who spends the most time with them. Dogs don't build relationships the way humans do. They build them through predictability. Every single day, your dog is quietly collecting information about the people around them. Who stays calm during stressful moments? Who makes them feel safe? Who respects their space? Who understands their signals? And who consistently responds in ways they can predict? Researchers studying dog-human attachment have found that dogs often form secure emotional bonds with people who provide reliable, consistent interactions over time. It's not usually one dramatic moment that creates trust. It's hundreds of ordinary ones. That's why your dog may slowly begin choosing one person over another for certain behaviors, not because they love everyone else less, but because they've learned, this person makes me feel secure, and leaning is one of the quietest ways they show it. Think about it. When people completely trust someone, they naturally become comfortable standing closer, relaxing their posture, or resting against them without thinking twice. Dogs aren't so different, except instead of using words, they use their bodies. When your dog gently presses their shoulder against your leg, they're placing part of their weight on you. That's a surprisingly vulnerable thing to do, because in that moment, they're choosing closeness over distance, comfort over caution, connection over uncertainty. But trust isn't the only reason dogs lean. Sometimes, they're trying to tell you something much more immediate. And once you recognize this next signal, you'll start noticing it almost every day. Your dog is speaking without words. One of the biggest mistakes we make is assuming that communication always has to involve sound. A bark, a whine, a growl. But dogs rarely rely on just their voices. In fact, researchers have found that dogs communicate primarily through body language. Their ears, their eyes, their tail, their posture, even the way they choose to stand near you. Every movement tells a story, and leaning is one of the quietest chapters. Imagine you're in a crowded room with someone you completely trust. Without saying a word, you naturally move closer to them, not because you're afraid, but because their presence makes you feel comfortable. Dogs often do something remarkably similar. When they lean against your leg, they're not always asking you to do something. Sometimes, they're simply checking in, almost as if they're saying, asterisk, I'm here, asterisk, Asterisk, and I know you're here too. Asterisk. That's because physical contact can be reassuring for dogs. Just feeling your presence beside them may help confirm that everything around them is safe. Researchers studying dog-human relationships have found that many dogs use their owners as a secure base when exploring unfamiliar environments. Simply knowing a trusted person is nearby can increase a dog's confidence and willingness to engage with the world. That helps explain something many owners notice. Their dog doesn't lean constantly. Instead, it often happens during very specific moments. When strangers are nearby, when they're entering a new place, during a thunderstorm, at the veterinarian, or even while quietly standing beside you in a busy park. They're not necessarily asking you to fix the situation. They're reminding themselves that you're still there. And sometimes, that quiet reassurance is all they need. But here's something even more fascinating. Not every lean means the same thing. Sometimes, the way your dog leans can completely change its meaning, and learning the difference could stop you from misunderstanding what your dog has been trying to tell you all along. Not every lean means the same thing. Here's where this behavior becomes even more fascinating. Because not every dog leans against you for exactly the same reason. The meaning often depends on when it happens and what's happening around them. For example, if your dog leans against you while you're both relaxing at home, their body is loose, their muscles are relaxed, their breathing is calm. That's usually a sign of comfort. They're choosing to share your space simply because being close feels good. But imagine a different situation. You're walking through a crowded place. A loud noise suddenly startles them, or someone unfamiliar walks toward you. Your dog quietly moves closer and presses against your leg. This time, the message may be completely different. They're not just seeking affection, they're seeking reassurance. Researchers who study canine emotions have found that many dogs look to their owners during uncertain situations, using trusted humans as a source of information about whether something is safe. Scientists call this social referencing. It's a remarkable behavior. Instead of reacting immediately, dogs often glance at their owner, watch their facial expression, notice their body language, and use those signals to decide how they should respond. Leaning can become part of that process, almost like saying, "You're not worried." Asterisk, so maybe I don't need to be either. Asterisk, but there's another kind of lean, one that many owners misunderstand. Sometimes your dog doesn't lean because they need comfort. Sometimes they're checking on you, and the science behind that may be one of the most remarkable parts of your relationship. Sometimes your dog is responding to you. There's one more reason dogs sometimes lean against their owners, and it may be the most emotional of them all. Sometimes the behavior isn't about what's happening to your dog. It's about what's happening to you. Most of us assume we're good at hiding our emotions. We smile when we're stressed. We say we're fine when we're exhausted. And we carry on with our day hoping nobody notices. But your dog isn't watching the words coming out of your mouth. They're watching everything else. The way your shoulders suddenly drop after a difficult phone call. The slower way you walk into the house after a long day. The tension in your posture. The expression on your face before you even realize you've made it. To another person, those changes might go completely unnoticed. To your dog, they're part of a pattern they've been studying for years. Researchers have shown that dogs are remarkably skilled at recognizing human emotional expressions and changes in body language. They don't understand every problem you're facing, but they often recognize that something about you has changed. And when that happens, some dogs respond in the simplest way they know how. They come closer, not because you've asked them to, not because they expect a reward, but because being close is one of the strongest forms of communication they have. Think back to a difficult day you've had. Maybe you sat quietly on the couch, without calling your dog, without saying a single word, and a few moments later, they slowly walked over, pressed themselves gently against your leg, and simply stayed there. No barking, no excitement, no demands, just quiet company. Scientists can't say that every dog understands sadness the way humans do, but growing evidence suggests that many dogs respond to human emotional cues and often adjust their own behavior in response. In other words, they may not understand why you're hurting, but they often recognize that you are. And for a species that communicates so much through touch, leaning may be one of the clearest ways they know to say, "You're not alone." But here's something even more surprising. If leaning is really connected to trust and emotional security, why do some perfectly healthy, happy dogs almost never lean against anyone? The answer has less to do with love and much more to do with personality. Why some dogs almost never lean? At this point, you might be thinking, my dog almost never leans against me. Does that mean they don't trust me? Not at all. And this is one of the biggest misconceptions about dog behavior. Just like people, every dog has their own personality. Some dogs naturally express affection through physical contact. Others prefer to stay close, without actually touching you. Researchers studying canine temperament have found that individual personality plays a major role in how dogs interact with people. Breed tendencies, early life experiences, confidence, and socialization can all influence how comfortable a dog is with physical contact. Think about the people in your own life. Some friends greet you with a hug. Others simply smile. Both care about you. They just express it differently. Dogs are remarkably similar. One dog may gently lean against your leg every evening. Another may simply choose to lie quietly at your feet. Some will follow you from room to room, without ever making physical contact. Others prefer sleeping pressed tightly against your side every single night. None of those behaviors automatically means more or less love. There's simply different ways of saying, I want to be close to you. That's why dog behavior experts encourage owners to look at the whole picture, not just one behavior. Does your dog check where you are? Do they relax more when you're nearby? Do they bring you their favorite toy? Do they look back at you during walks? Do they choose to sleep in the same room? Each of those small behaviors is another piece of the puzzle. Leaning is only one sentence in an entire language your dog has been speaking all along. And when you start seeing those behaviors together, a much clearer picture begins to appear. Because your dog isn't communicating with one signal. They're telling a story, one that they've been quietly writing every single day you've spent together. And understanding that story may completely change the way you see your relationship with them. But before we finish, there's one surprising mistake that millions of loving dog owners make whenever their dog leans against them. And without realizing it, that reaction can completely change what the dog is trying to communicate. What happens inside your dog's brain? So, what actually happens inside your dog's mind the moment they choose to lean against you? While scientists are still learning exactly how every behavior works, research over the past 2 decades has revealed something remarkable. When dogs share calm, positive interactions with people they trust, their bodies can release oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone. It's the same hormone associated with trust, social connection, and the emotional bond between parents and their children. What's fascinating is, this doesn't only happen in dogs. Studies suggest that both dogs and their owners can experience increases in oxytocin during warm, positive interactions such as gentle touch, relaxed eye contact, and affectionate social bonding. Think about that for a moment. Your dog leans against you. You instinctively rest your hand on their back. They relax. You relax. Without either of you saying a single word, your brains may already be responding to one another. It's a quiet conversation, taking place through touch instead of language. Perhaps that's one reason physical contact matters so much to dogs. Not because they need constant attention, but because closeness itself can become reassuring. Over time, your dog begins to associate your presence with safety, with comfort, with predictable experiences. That's why many dogs naturally move closer to the people they trust, especially after a stressful event or at the end of a long day, because your presence has become part of what helps them feel secure. But here's something that makes this bond even more extraordinary. Your dog wasn't born knowing that you were the person they could trust. They learned it, one ordinary day at a time, one quiet interaction after another, one gentle moment, repeated hundreds, even thousands of times. And that may be the most beautiful part of this entire behavior. Because your dog isn't leaning against a stranger. They're leaning against someone who has slowly become their safe place. Transition to outro. And when you realize what that simple lean really represents, you begin to understand something much bigger than one behavior. You begin to understand the relationship itself. Your dog has never needed to tell you they love you. They've been showing you every time they quietly choose to lean against your side. Now I'm curious, does your dog lean against you? Or do they have another unique way of showing they trust you? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to understand your dog on a deeper level, subscribe to the Paw Decoder.